Yo, what's up? What's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Review with my friend Mike Tyson here. We are here to talk about creativity and resistance because we want you guys to go forth and be creative in whatever endeavor that you go into, even if it's science, technology, engineering, math. What we're starting to see is we're walking into a future where you're going to have to be more creative, but there's going to be resistance from the powers that be, because when you going into that science firm, when you going into that engineering place, or you leveling up and you trying to get a directorate role, there are going to be parameters of resistance that you're going to need to overcome to get to where you want to get to. And I think it's huge because that environment influences your creativity. And Mike's going to take it from here and let us know, because he chose this one specifically. So Mike, what about the environment, influences your creativity, and what made you come up with this, with this
All right. So first off, when we think about this, we have to think about this at two different ways. For one thing, right here in the moment, trying to have a be creative. I've set time aside. I'm sitting down. Like we talked about earlier, I've got some earbuds in. I've got my space. I've got my schedule and everything blocked off so that I know this is my time to be creative. This is my time to work on my art. I can get in the flow and I don't have to be worried about being disrupted by things. So it's really important to realize how much our environment can influence that level of flow that we have. People can distract us unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. So on that level, the environment around you in these creative moments is really important. Think about, the type of music that you're listening to. You and I kind of went back and forth in an earlier episode about lo-fi beats. I like to listen to some music. I like to listen to reggae too. So I got some little roots reggae that I like to listen to. I like to listen to lo-fi beats. I found that I have to listen to music more because if I listen to stuff with words, then I'm paying attention to the lyrics. So I
yeah.
have to listen to the music. So being aware of these things, how they impact your creativity and your flow in that moment is really important. Also, on a macro level, on the environment around us, how organized is the space that you're trying to work in?
Yeah.
Do you work in a disorganized, chaotic space? Sometimes that's counterproductive. You hear people talk about a lot sometimes about how, oh, I function better this way. Do you really, or is that just what you've always done? There we come back to how our mindsets influence how we approach situations, but also who you surround yourself with. Do you surround yourself with people that inspire you?
Mm.
It's one thing. We used to talk to our daughter. I have a daughter who's a softball player, and we should talk to her about how if she was the best player on the team, she probably wasn't on the right team because she
Mm.
wasn't being pushed by those people around her.
Mike, that's
So
deep.
you
That's
surround
deep right there.
it is. It really is deep. It's not about, because so oftentimes we try to set up these hierarchical structures around us where we're the top of the chain, that alpha. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But if you're the alpha, then there's nobody pushing you. But so surround yourself with people that inspire you. Surround yourself with things that inspire you. So and then internally create an environment internally too, meditation, things like this, making sure you've de-stressed and gotten handled the stressful things in your life so that you can bring that creativity and that flow to the table when you show up.
Well, and that internal environment means everything.
Yeah.
And the reason why it means so much is because the fact that so many people are overly connected to people that don't add any value to their lives, right? I'm not saying throw away people. I'm not saying, you know, I'm saying set boundaries. What I see a lot of
Absolutely.
people they don't do is they don't set boundaries. And then they also have an issue when you set boundaries because they're so used to people not setting boundaries that they feel like they need access to you 24/7. And so
Yes.
whenever you decide you're going to go out and, pursue a different endeavor or something new, they're like, "What is this?" And then all the ridicule comes out. What do you think? Who do you think you are? You think you're better than us? You don't do this with us no more. And part of you kind of feels bad. It's like, hey, I do need to get out and do these things, right? And when it comes down to environment, one thing that I've done is because being a recluse is not healthy, right? And I a lot of times I go to myself because I gotta cut content, I got to work on stuff. There's not a lot of podcasters that are hanging out in the area that I'm in. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I've got to also detach, run an organization, at night and and help facilitate run an organization during the daytime, right? So a lot of times you can create this routine where you go and you're doing your stuff. So one thing I've done is, they have like since it's a Navy base, they have like a little place where we can go have a couple beverages, right? So what I'll do is I'll go out and I'll actually volunteer as a bartender there. And that way I get to know people. I can smile. Sometimes I wear my shirt, you know what I'm saying? And people are
Yeah,
like, oh, what is that? I'm like, oh yeah, it's my podcast. I do a little something, but it's a great opportunity for me to, work on those conversation muscles, right?
ab-
And get to know people on different, deeper levels. Because what I found is that was actually my saving grace through actually going to, the local, pub that we have here for officers. I was able to make some connections that actually got because right now I'm pursuing my project management professional certification, the big dog, the one that they got to
oh
pay you
yeah,
good money for,
that
right?
big.
And I got it paid for through having a conversation with somebody else from a different section. We have completely different jobs. We're in the same organization, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm taking these project management courses and doing this. And he was like, we got funding for that. Shout out to my guy, Chad. He was like, we got funding for that. Let me see if I can put you in a course. So we all get in it. I'm asking in the course. The lady was like, through that part of the organization, they actually have vouchers to pay for the exam. And that's a $500 plus exam, right? So it's crazy how your environment influences you. Was I ready to take it because that was something that I was going to pursue? Because we talk about, you know, resistance and how you don't want to be buried by it. Yes, but it's an even better feeling when somebody else believes in you, and then y'all can ping off of each other. Hey, we got big goals out here, and then you start meeting other people, and you're not alone. And you also don't have to be, with your environment, you don't have to be the subject matter expert at everything, right? One of, I believe it was Henry Ford. Was it Henry Ford, Ford Motor Company?
Sure.
He talked about how he didn't know everything, but he had a button to push if he was struggling with something, right? And that's a lot of times that's the name of the game. Most CEOs, if you know them, they just have very, very good facilitation skills, and they're strategic thinkers.
Absolutely.
Because by the time they've made it to that level, usually the inner workings of the organization have changed a lot, right? But they can see the forest for the trees and understand where we're going, and they have a person that can explain it to them. And they take that information and then they do more research, the good ones, and then they come out and crank out a good plan. So I think that's it's beautiful that, and I'm glad you shared that about your daughter. The fact that you are forcing her to forego the easy route to become better, to get
Right.
better, because it's so hard, especially as a parent, right? Because with going into a different circle that's better than you, it's going to be some challenges, and you're going to have to facilitate as a parent as well. Like, hey, I'm gonna have to talk you through this one. Like, this the next level. Like, hey, you already know what it was like at the last level. This is how we got to get right at this next level, right? My daughter went through it too. She was in a basketball league that was older than her, but she's their size, like height wise. So it just wasn't. It was one of those things where she couldn't understand why they was moving so fast. They was doing this and that, and then the next year she was in a league that was closer to her age, so she was able to actually get out there and do her thing, and
Absolutely.
it was beautiful. Like, she went out there, scored points, went through the legs. I didn't even know she had skills like that. The girl is 7 years old. I'm like, what is going on? Where you learn that at?
Well,
But that was
and it
experience.
comes back to that, like we talked about in the first episode with the mindsets. When
Mhm.
we're scared with that fixed mindset, we don't want to be challenged. But when we have a growth mindset, we like the challenge because we know in the end it's going to make us stronger and better. We pushed our daughter a lot, especially when she was 14, 15 years old. She's playing with 17, 18-year-old grown women in softball, and that's what made her better down the road, where she was able to push herself to those levels. So the people you surround yourself with, the environment that you surround yourself with is very, very important. It can make or break you, in dealing with.
That is outstanding, Mike. I appreciate you sharing it, and this is such a pivotal one. That environment influences creativity at levels that we could never, ever, ever assess in our lives. We reach great heights and so many great challenges. They're like, man, I can't believe I made it through that. And
Absolutely.
that's the type of energy that we want to push. We want y'all to stay encouraged. Our next episode, we're going to go into our next episode out of 9, And resistance, we're going to talk about how resistance is power. And resistance is what you need, to get through that finish. And everything past that finish line is everything that you wanted. But it's like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen a little parable of a guy that he's digging, he's digging at the little mountain and the gold is on the other side. He just can't see it yet. That's typically how life goes, man. And so that's one of those things. We want y'all to stay encouraged, continue to tap in. We appreciate y'all. Tap into the next week's episode. It's going down. We're going to talk about the power of resistance.